Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy Goodall,
And I am Genesis Etienne,
and we are
focused
Focused
at
at
40.
40. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Focused at 40. We are almost at the end of our season, and we decided that we wanted to spice things up a bit today and talk about sex. So, what are we talking about? We're talking about how sex changes for us in our 40s, and it's all things surrounding sex, how we feel about ourselves, what are the types of experiences that we have moving into our 40s. Does it get better? Does it get worse? Do we get to know ourselves more? um and how it adds or takes away from different areas of our lives. So, Jen.
So I think it's a very big, huge, very general topic, right? And so I kind of, when I thought about how we could talk about this, I wanted for it to add to the conversation that we've been having about validation, about manifesting things, about how filling your cup and other, yes is expensive. And so in relation to sex, because again, right, I work with couples and I'm constantly kind of thinking about this. I thought I really wanted to talk about how sex adds or takes away to the conversation. You know what I mean? And so I thought it would be a great kind of tire in a taboo kind of way, because we tend to stick to some topics that are politically correct and
Yeah, so in case you guys haven't noticed, Genesis is the more risque one of the two of us. I'm the
and
one
so
that's less exposed.
it's the yin to my yang. It is the yin to my yang. And I think that it is such a huge thing. And I think it is something that people want to talk about. I mean, I have gotten so many questions like, oh, talk about something this, or talk about, the cheating, and talk about, we've had gentlemen ask us to do topics on, how women change after they're in committed relationships, are they still sexy, kids, stress, finances, so there's a lot of things I think that happen in this age group sexually, that again add or take away from a conversation that we're having about ourselves. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, when we think about from a perspective of yes, it's expensive. I think one of the things that I learned as I got older is learning to say no. Sometimes you end up dating people that you really didn't want to date in the first place. You knew you should have said no from the beginning, but for whatever reason, you allowed things to progress. And by the time you look at it, in my case, by the time I looked at it, 6 years had passed and I was still in a relationship that I knew I had no business in. And so knowing who you are and owning what you want and what you don't want, knowing what to say no to and what to say yes to. Because I mean, saying yes to a relationship that I knew I had no business in was a poor decision on my part. And as I got older, it became easier to say no,
Of
um,
course.
and to
And
identify what I wanted to say yes to.
yeah, and I was gonna say, and I think that yes becomes more expensive as we get older. I know that in my 20s, and not to talk so, loosely about it, but in my 20s, I feel like it was easier for it to happen. Like, sexually, I was probably more open. I was not as I've gotten older, and again, validating myself and feeling myself and manifesting the life that I want. Like, it's hard. I'm sorry, you're not gonna just get up in here. You know what
Like,
I mean? You're not gonna just, you know what I mean? And so I feel like at this age, I also think it's like a really beautiful gift that we get to have, what a great topping, on the cake we get to enjoy as human beings, you know what I mean? And so it is a gift, and it is like this beautiful thing. And so I feel like I'm at a place where I don't want to spoil that, or I don't want to, squander that with a BS relationship, or with somebody who's not, worthy of the love. You know what I'm saying?
all that you have to offer. It's
All the
funny
freedom
because
to give,
I was
you
having
know?
I was having a conversation. I mean, and you and I have these conversations all the time with even like our friends from college and different female friends that we have. But I was talking to even my cousins the other day. Some of them are older than I am, and we're talking about orgasms and the fact that many of us never had one until way later in life, like in our 40s.
I think that is also a part of everything we've been talking about. I don't think that women, Caribbean women, women of color, we're not really taught that way. We're not taught about our vagina. Even now, like I'll say like vagina and penis around my sons, and they're like, "Oh my God, mom, oh my God." And I'm like, no, 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 we're not gonna be taboo. It's your body, right? But I didn't have that growing up. I mean, my dad, it's so funny. My dad's sex conversation to me was that was the conversation. That was the conversation. Do
Well,
not
my family had no conversations about that at all.
Yeah,
Period.
and so of course, right? Of course we didn't know, and of course we don't know what we like, or we don't know what feels good or how to do certain things. If we've never even, been given, I think, a safe place to explore that, to have that conversation.
And I think also a big part of it too is being raised in a culture of service as a female to serve the men that we are with, whether it's, having their meals ready or making sure that they are, okay and getting pleasure more than your own.
I think that that's, I'm so grateful that we're growing up, or that we're young women in this generation.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like in our mothers' generations and before, I don't think that they had what we had in terms of being able to say what we like or know what we like or explore that, right? I think women had to be moms and wives kind of early. Not everybody was afforded an education. You know what I mean? That's been what it's been. And so I think that we're like really the first, maybe the second generation where we grew up with Playboy was accessible, things were accessible. Our parents didn't have that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we're also growing up, and we're also adults in a very hypersexualized age. My biggest fear in the world is that, like, my kids are gonna find something crazy on the internet. And I mean, it's a click away. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I
I
mean,
think
I
it's
think we also grew up in a time where it's sex and our bodies and just who we are has always been private, and now it's like everything, like you said, is over sexualized. And I'm all for women owning their bodies and being proud of their bodies, but like, at what point do you leave something to the imagination, or at what point does something become sacred to your partner?
I
Um,
think that that's at the point where you have become so comfortable. You know what I mean? When you know exactly what works for you guys, I think so much of the stuff that I see in my work is like, yo, sex is like a big deal in marriages. You wouldn't believe how many people present to counseling and to couples counseling because of a sexual issue. You know what I mean? It's a very tender topic. It's a very tender topic. And it's a conversation that I think, again, you must know yourself to know how to communicate certain things, because if you don't, I mean, it's the blind leading the blind in a lot of
Yeah,
relationships.
and I also think that so many of us, especially as females growing up in such aggressive Caribbean, well, Jamaican for sure, societies where like our music and just everything when it comes to women and sex, a lot of it is very aggressive. I mean, some of us carry like trauma that we don't even know that we're carrying, which
You're
prevents
damn right. You're
which
damn right.
prevents us from being
Have you
expressive.
seen some of those places? Have you been to one of those dance halls where they jump on the girl and dude, come on, that's traumatic. We're traumatic. It's traumatic.
Absolutely. It's traumatic, and we laugh about it, and we brush it off because
Normalize it.
of our
Yeah.
culture, and it has become normal, and it's like this is not this, like, sex is actually supposed to be a beautiful thing. It's not supposed to feel like abuse. It's not supposed to feel like something that's
Transactional.
forced on you or transactional. And I think that we have become a very transactional society. And so I mean, even me personally, like, I was dealing with a lot of trauma that I didn't even know I was holding on to, that prevented me from um allowing myself to be, loved in a way that I deserved. And a
Absolutely.
big part of that was also sexual, and so fortunately I went to counseling,
Yeah.
and and fortunately I have a friend that's very close to me that's a counselor that could recognize the trauma. And guys, we talk about it all the time about like knowing who your circle is and knowing who to ask for help and where to go for help. But having just conversations, and because sex has always been something that has been taboo. When you're growing up, you don't talk about sex. Like I said, my parents had never had a conversation with me about sex. And so you think that there's things that you shouldn't talk about. I mean, and this leads to even things like our reproductive system, you know, as
Of
women
course.
growing up, we always, I think because our parents' generation were, a lot of them, you know, even though they were working, they were still home, you know, full on home parents. And so, you know, they instill in, at least mine instilled in me for so long, and yours, you know, be independent, have your own, you know, you become very career driven. But nobody talks about the balance of, don't wait too long to have kids if it's something that you really want, because at 35, your eggs actually start to
You're
reduce.
right. Absolutely. I
You know?
mean,
And so
you
there's
know,
just so many things about um sex and our life, or entire reproductive life, that we don't talk about. And by
no,
the
I,
time you get to 40, you're just like, huh.
wow.
You know how many of my friends now are doing IVF, and my family members are going through IVF because nobody talked about the things that we should have been talking about from we were, you know, early, because our
It's
parents all started
really
having kids in
important.
their 20s.
It is really important, Kat. It is really important. You know how many people hold on to sexual trauma and they don't understand why it disrupts other parts of their lives?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Definitely not, you know, having conversations about how your body works, feeling comfortable with your body, period.
Yep.
I know women who will not, you know, sit in front of a mirror and look at their parts. And I'm like, why? You know, and it is because there's a lot of shame around
I
that.
never even thought to do that though. That's the thing.
No,
Yeah. Why would I
listen,
do
you
that?
gotta listen. You know, we're women, things change, hormonal things change. You gotta like, hey, check in there, make sure it's all, you know. But again, there has to be a certain amount of space that you give yourself to have that and to feel comfortable and to be able to loosen the shame around it. I say the hell with the shame around it, but a lot of people, there is a lot of shame around sexuality and even about, you know, listen, it's just an ongoing conversation. You know, how it affects even your partner, how your unaddressed sexual trauma or unaddressed sexual issues, how it affects the relationship is incredible. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's incredible. And I don't know that that is a conversation either that women are taught to have. I don't know that, or men. I don't think men are taught to have that conversation either. You know
Yeah,
what I
and
mean?
you know, I think too, generationally, I mean, earlier when you mentioned some of the topics that some of the men came to us and asked us to talk about, one of our friends came to us and said, we need to talk about women's complacency after you get married, or after you're in a long-term relationship and you start to have kids. And it's the same for us, you know, we go out with a man, and then all of a sudden this big bear belly and this complacency of, I don't want to go anywhere, or I don't want to do anything. But we as women do it too. You know, when we're courting each other, you put so much effort and energy into spending time with each other, acknowledging each other, you know, complimenting each other. And then you get to a point of complacency. And I think this is true for even our friendships. You get comfortable, and, you know, they said familiarity brings contempt, right? You get comfortable and you're just like, you let yourself go. And the truth of the matter is, yes, we have kids, we have our jobs, you know, have a household to take care of. But at the end of the day, what got you there, you still have to, how do you maintain it?
Yeah.
What are the things that you do to maintain it? You know, I have a friend, he and his wife, they have intentional date nights every single week, every
I
Saturday.
love that. I love that.
Date nights, you know, because they understood that at the end of the day, life happens. And if we're not intentional about making time for each other, then it can allow so many other things to creep into your relationship. And
You
so,
damn right.
mhm,
You're damn right. I have a girlfriend who me and her were having a conversation and I asked her, like, you know, kind of like, when was the last time that you guys and this? And I said, do you guys calendar it, right? And she's like, no, I would never calendar. And I was like, girl, you better calendar it because you know what? The less you have, the less you want. So
yeah,
you know what? That is how, again, contempt is breeded and there's space that builds and there's walls that are formed. And those walls are hard to put down. You know what I
and
mean?
there are so many
And
nights
so
where
you
like,
have
oh,
to
we're
be
tired
intentional.
and we don't feel like it. I
Yeah.
was watching, so I did a Bible study the other day, and in the Bible study, at the end of the Bible study, there were three women, Beth Moore, Priscilla Schreier, and, oh Lord, I cannot remember right now her name, but it's three female pastors, right? And at the end, they were doing a question and answer. And one of the questions was about sex. And they all were just like, yo, if your husband wants it, you better know that you have to give it to him whenever he wants it. Even if she's like, all of you that feel like you have your 28-day periods, get rid of them right now.
Oh my
All of
goodness,
you
a
who have-
pastor, yes,
all of you
pastor.
who have headaches every night, like snap out of it, because at the end of the day, it's a partnership and a union that you have to be able to fulfill each other's needs. And there's things that you have to do sometimes that you don't feel like doing, but at the end of the day, it's what helps to nurture your relationship.
You're damn right. And to understand the other sex. You know what I mean? I used to tell my girlfriends, you want your man to behave tonight and to not look around and to not embarrass you or check out other women. Have sex with him before you guys go out. Have sex before you go out. And he is calm. He's gonna be chilling when he got everybody's gonna be relaxed.
Yeah.
He's because you have to do it. And I know that it is. Listen, it's a lot of work for a lot of women. You wouldn't believe how many people have a lot of guarded guards around their sexuality and how they experience their sexual life, if they really experience it. You can have a whole sexual life and not ever really truly experience it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I know firsthand what you mean.
You're so sweet. But listen, again, though, kind of to tie back these, because we want this to all make sense for you guys, right? But to tie it back, girl, you had to fill your cup. You had to get into yourself. You had to heal a lot of things about yourself, therapy and COVID. And again, right, talking about the setbacks, all of those things, while they seemed like these incredibly traumatic events at the time, they were also, the coal that creates the diamond that needed to be in order for you to even fully be aware of yourself and insightful and love yourself and, want to learn your body and explore that. Like, that's commendable and beautiful, Mwah.
And we talk about no experience being a waste, right? Because the goal is to learn from all of our experiences. And I don't have any regrets. I don't have any regrets. But I would definitely say that if nothing else, the experiences that I had helped to get me to the point of what I know I don't want. So sometimes it's not even about what you want. It's acknowledging what you know you don't want and being open to receiving what God has in store for you, But there's a period of preparation, like you said, knowing who you are, owning who you are, knowing what you want, and not being willing to settle or devalue yourself for people and things that really don't deserve your time or energy.
Again, validation, we just spoke about that, right? I mean, who gets to validate your sexual person? And that should totally be you. You know what I mean? And there is shame and there is religion and there is all of these things that are in place that are, there to do wonderful things, but it also comes with some tough shame and some guilt and things like that. But you know what, man? Like, we are biological beings. We were given this beautiful thing to hone and manifest and make real and enjoy and reproduce and get close to one another. So I think that, get naked.
I think a lot of the time we take for granted, even when you talk about religion. I grew up in the Catholic Church, which makes you feel like brimstone and fire every time you do something. You commit sin. But which is also why it's important to actually have a relationship with God for yourself and not listen to what everybody has to say all the time.
Created by, yes.
Yeah, but I think we also have to remember that sex was created by God. He just gave us guidelines around, how
we should use it
in the best way possible. Exactly. And so the truth of the matter is that at the end of the day, we all make mistakes and we all do things that we either are not proud of or that sometimes we might regret or that brings us hurt. But the truth is that we can grow out of those things, which is what we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
Using those experiences that we've been through to, one, get help if we need, external help to grow out of it, but to learn from those experiences and to become better because of it so that we can now experience a better life.
Yes.
And experience more fulfilling things.
Yes, all of God's promises. That's how I see it, right? These are all of God's promises. Yeah. I think it's really, I love this. I love this.
So Genesis wants to do a live, guys, to really talk about, some more go into this topic in, in a more in-depth way. We definitely want to have some of the gentlemen join us
Yes.
for this conversation to have a male perspective. So look out for our live.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited about that. And we also have, we're also featuring, kind of speaking about sexuality. We're also going to be featuring a business that we're very proud to be associated with, which is also dedicated to female hygiene and to the female reproductive system. So look out for that as well.
Thanks for joining us this week, and we will see you again next week. Bye.
Bye.